Hi everyone, welcome back to another SimplePlanes video. In this video, I'll explain most of the process for making the new wings for the SOL 120. So, let's get started. As you may know, over the last month and a bit, I've been completely remaking the SOL 120's wings to be way more realistic and detailed than they ever were. I also said I was going to try and explain how to make detailed fuselage wings, and the process is a little complicated. I did in fact try to make a tutorial after I made a video on how to make a basic fuselage, but it fell apart because I had no knowledge on wings. This video will very briefly explain how to do that, but I'll also make a separate video soon which should be a more detailed explanation on exactly how to make these wings. Now, the wings. So of course the way I made these is a very long process, but I'll try to explain. Let's just compare them quickly to the original wings for the SOL 120. So the original wings, they at first may look similar, but they're not the same at all. These wings are in fact mod wings using mod parts. And the other wings, the new ones, are made using completely vanilla parts. There's no mods. Well, I guess there is some mods, some small mods to use, but basically the entire wing is not modded at all. Now, one thing to take into consideration with these wings is there's not that many details. Like, I guess they are somewhat detailed. They have rivets, but there's a lot of parts that don't really look that right. So there's some part clipping here. The spoilers aren't that detailed. In fact, especially when they're up. When these flaps are fully retracted, it just doesn't look right at all when I open the spoilers. And even when the flaps are all down, there's not that many details. It just doesn't look that detailed at all. There's also some more technical errors that don't really make that much sense. For example, this pylon here. Now we can see here, this pylon is part of the engine, which is not a pylon. This is actually called a flap track fairing, or just a fairing. The engine pylon actually should just end about here somewhere, and there really shouldn't be a fairing here. There should be just a normal flaperon or some sort of inboard aileron or just flaps here. But instead, not only did I put a pylon, I'm just gonna call it a pylon, I also put a fuel dump, I think it's called a probe or something, which doesn't make sense at all because the hot engine exhaust would be coming out the back of the engine, and if fuel is dumped here, that will actually cause the hot engine exhaust would actually cause the fuel to light on fire, which not many people may notice, but it's a very big error. And on literally any plane, it's either on this outboard fairing, or it's on like outside of the flaps entirely, so it's out here somewhere. It's not right next to the engine. There's also a few smaller issues where the placement of the fairings, the size of the fairings, the number of fairings isn't that consistent. And also with the slats, they aren't that neat. So if I track them here, you'll see the bit behind the front, like the leading edge of the slats, clips through the wing a bit, but that's also not how it works. You'll see that soon in the new wings. But slats are in fact small leading edge that slides off. They don't bring most of the wing with them. They just, you'll see, it'll make sense later. Now let's have a look at the new wings. So the first immediate things to notice about the new wings are the fairings are much smaller. And also the wings look a little different. Of course they do, because they're different. There's also, instead of that pylon thing, there's what's called a flaperon here. It acts with the flaps, as you can see here when I extend them. And it also acts as an aileron. You also notice, of course, the flaps are way more detailed, which is really evident in wing view. They have more rivets. And also the inboard flaps are what's called double slotted, which means you can see here, there's a second bit of smaller flap. It's called a slot, I think. And that really means is the flaps can extend more, so they have more surface area. And also that second slot can angle down more and put direct air down a lot more. Well, not a lot more, but it can direct more air down. And you can see the flaperon is definitely acting with the flaps there. The elbow flaps are what they call single slot, which means there's a single piece which is rotating. And this is how the fairings actually work. You can see this part of a flap mechanism. I could make it more detailed, but I think a few pistons and some fuselages is enough for this. And the fairings hide that mechanism. So the fairings don't actually act with the mechanism, they just hide it and make it more streamlined, which reduces drag. You can also see the slats here. On the original wings, they were whole. These are effectively hollow, and they in a way slide off the wing. In real life, they're supported by these, I think called struts or something. There's obviously a name for them. In SimplePlanes, this actually works by some hidden rotators, which rotate actually about here somewhere. They rotate on an axis below the slats. And I've scaled them down to a scale of 0, so they're pretty much hidden. They still function, but they're very much hidden. And the spoilers. There's a lot more details here. You can see some hydraulic lines. And also you can see that, let's say when I retract the flaps, let's fast forward here. When I open up the spoilers, you can see, well, I guess I did make the flaps clip a lot with the spoilers. There's definitely like a hole, not a hole, but there's like an opening or a bit of hollow in the wing where the spoilers, the spoiler pistons, I guess, and the part of the spoilers would hide, as well as where that leading edge of the flaps goes as well. Now, of course, there is a very complex way of making this. It starts off simple, where you make the basic layer to the wing, but then you cut out all these different sections, you add more details, and I'll make a whole separate video on this, of course. But this video is just going to be explaining exactly what's inside all these wings and what all these different details are. There's also a few other small details. For example, there's, I can't remember what it's called again, but they discharge static or something. And literally, well, not all planes, but most planes have them. And you can see that fuel dump probe, but I'm just going to call it a probe, which rises on the other plane here, which of course doesn't make sense on this inboard aileron or flaperon. That is instead here in this small little section in between the outboard aileron and the outboard flaps. There's also a lot of rivets. That is actually pretty simple. You get on the new label parts, and you have to carefully do this, but you pretty much put a bunch of dots, like a bunch of full stops, and then that acts as rivets. So it's low part count, but there's a lot of rivets. There's a small bit of funky trees code involved as well with the functioning of the spoilers and all of this really, because I have just the VTOL slider, of course the pitch and roll axis will just roll here, and there's also launch countermeasures for the spoilers. There's obviously a lot of funky trees code to make it all interact, and also with the way the flaps rotate up and then they retract, like you can see how it works. But also with the landing gear, I didn't show this, but on the original plane, or on the original wings, landing gear had a single piston which extended, like retracted and pulled the gear up. But like real life, not fictional, the landing gear actually has this brace which can, I'm not sure how to describe this, but it basically it splits in half and rotates, well, it really folds in half, and then it extends out to be a single length when the gear is extended to brace it in place, and then when it's time to retract the gear, the small piston assists in pulling it out, like up, and then it folds and the gear retracts. In SimplePlanes, the way the gear is actually retracted is by a rotator in the middle of this hinge here, because there's everything else is a floppy rotator. There's a piston in this hydraulic strut, but it's a single rotator here which actually pulls the gear up. It's not a rotator up here like most people would assume. And of course, like most of this plane, there's a lot of funky trees with this landing gear, with the way these doors open, and also with installing the landing gear in the wing also took a lot of fine-tuning, but it's doable. It's just complicated. Should be explainable though. You also notice with the wing door on the other wings, the wing door was a single piece that opened up with the main door, and opened up to a very large angle, or about here or something. On this plane, on this wings, not the plane, the wing door is actually attached to the main strut of the landing gear. And you can see there's a smaller piece which extends into place when the gear is retracted due to how rotation works with the geometry of the wing. There's a small bit here. And if it didn't retract like that, then it would clip through the wing, as you can see in this small gap here, because there's not much room for it to go. I think that's all there is to really explain. Of course, I'll go over how to make these wings in a separate video. Not these exact wings, but I'll explain how to make wings similar to these in a separate video. For wing flex, actually, I might do that in this video, because for wing flex, I already have the rotators installed. So the way the wing flex works with this wing is there's 3 segments. The first segment in here, which also has the engine, which is not on at the moment, is attached to the fuselage. The second section, and then this third section, these are the 3 segments, and there's a rotator somewhere in here, they're just there. There's also a rotator out here. The way I'm going to actually have those rotators rotate is I'm going to have what I call physics wings, which are the wings that actually provide lift, not these like vanity wings, which are only there for looks. I'm gonna output using the new variable outputs feature. I'm going to have, let's say, this wing output its lift force to a variable, and then that lift force is going to be used in the rotator which rotates that segment the wing is on. And that way, I can have realistic wing flex without spending ages writing code. Unfortunately, I can't do that in this video because I'm working on engines, and the engines are delayed for another reason, which is due to startup sequences and some other stuff with the engines. Like, I have the engines, I just need to finish some small things with them. I need engines to, of course, power the plane, and also I want the engine on the wings before I attach them to the plane, and actually I need to redo part of the plane's fuselage too. And that's the wings. In the next video, I'll attempt to explain how to make these wings. They won't be as detailed as these wings, because these wings took me 2 months. I'm not going to try and squeeze that into a single video. But I want to explain the basic process to make these. Like starting with how to make the basic airfoil, and then how to add cutouts for flaps and things, how to add wing flex. A lot of it's really just practicing and spending some time fine-tuning things. But I will explain the basic idea of how to make them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!